And then we'll have our next and last panel up.
Some might call it a golf sponsorship. Waste Management saw it as an opportunity to rethink, repurpose, reimagine, and create something remarkable. To see how the most highly attended tournament on the PGA Tour became the most sustainable event in sports, look beyond the great golf shots, the innovative water features, and the excitement of the famous 16th hole. Start instead with this, a compostable cup, which, like every item served, sold, or brought onto the grounds at the Waste Management Phoenix Open, was carefully analyzed and chosen for its ability to achieve an even bigger goal, the Zero Waste Challenge. And to understand how that came to be, you have to start months before the first tee shot, when the team, the plan, and the processes to create a new benchmark for sustainability began taking shape. So when the golfers, the vendors, and the fans arrived, everything on the course met one of these standards. Was it recyclable, compostable, reusable? Could it be accepted here at a zero waste station, creatively repurposed from its first life as a waste management dumpster, and staffed with experts to take materials to their proper place, or to guide fans on how to do it themselves at one of 6,000 recycling and compost bins strategically placed throughout the grounds? Sustainability took hold in other ways too. Gray water from concession kitchens was reused elsewhere to save water. 100% of electricity came from renewable sources. And trucks powered by clean-burning natural gas were used to transport materials to a local composting facility or to this waste management material recovery facility, where the long-term benefits of the greenest show on grass take hold. And the goal of zero waste? It became a reality, with 100% of all materials, bottles, cans, plates, and yes, cups, diverted to recycling, composting, or waste to energy. In the end, the most significant numbers were these: 7 days, 560,000 fans, zero waste. And the most significant message? If it can happen at the most boisterous, fan-friendly golf tournament on tour, it can happen anywhere. A household, a business, a campus, or a community, with Waste Management leading the way.
We're going to bring Alan Hershkowitz back up. And just in the spirit of full disclosure, Waste Management is not taking a position on the football game by having just a representative from the Seattle Seahawks here. We're not doing it. But he's got a lot of bling, and I will encourage each of you to see that on his hand before he gets out of here. Alan, it's all yours to talk a little bit more sports and talk a little bit more trash. And you guys better back it all up.
Thanks, and thanks, Gwen, for all that great information. It was really a lot of great stuff. EDF is doing such good stuff. Hi, everybody. So we have some of the most influential environmentalists in the world of sports on this panel. Start with Mike Lynch, who is the senior vice president in charge of NASCAR Green, one of the most successful sports greening initiatives in professional sports. One of the most robust. He'll talk with you. We got Jacob Davis from the Seattle Seahawks. This is kind of an incestuous panel for me because we work with NASCAR. The Seattle Seahawks is owned by Paul Allen, Vulcan, which co-founded the Green Sports Alliance with me and Natural Resource Defense Council. And the Seahawks at CenturyLink Stadium are doing some spectacular stuff you're going to hear about. Omar Mitchell, the Senior Vice President in charge of Public Affairs and the person who oversees the NHL greening program. There's not 5 people in the world, this is true, there's not 5 people in the world who are more influential in sports greening than Omar Mitchell. He oversaw the production of the first professional league sustainability report produced by the NHL. He and Mike Lynch both are extraordinary experts in getting green sponsorship, so they're going to talk a little bit about that. And another colleague who helped launch the green sports movement, the Green Sports Alliance, Tom Carpenter, who is the director of the Waste Management Sustainability Services Program. All of this zero waste stuff that has been celebrated, that's on his watch. So thanks for all your work, folks. So I'm gonna just, we had a pre-call about this panel and how to organize it. I'm gonna just mix it up a little bit. Surprise. So the first thing, instead of going through all the 4 questions that I had spoken with you about earlier, I want to take them one at a time. So why don't we start with you describing the environmental programs that you run at your league, at your venue, and also explain the business case for it. Let's just stick with those 2 issues first. What are you doing, and why are you able to do it from a business perspective? And let's start with Mike, and then we'll just work our way down this way.
Okay. Thanks for having us here. We do have a number of our race venues that are waste management customers, so we do work with waste management on some of this. So the initiatives that we're doing, what we realized early on when we kicked off NASCAR Green 6 years ago was that it's basically, if you are bringing together what essentially is a small Midwestern town for 3 or 4 days between the campgrounds and the grandstand attendees, then actually what you do have is a small town. And you've got the same issues around environmental impact that any town like West Lafayette, Indiana, or Dayton, Ohio, or somewhere like that would have. So we broke down our initiative areas into waste, emissions, and power, and then really looked to prioritize those along 2 key dimensions. And keeping in mind that everything that we did right from the beginning, we were talking to our fans. We were running focus groups, we were running surveys. NASCAR has a fan council with about 15,000 people on it who get surveyed weekly online about a variety of topics having to do with the sport, and we use that to actually get an early read on green and how to think about it, how to proceed with it. So the way we prioritized initiatives higher was if not only that they were genuine and they were going to produce measurable results and would be something we could really stand behind, but then also needed to resonate with our fans. They had to actually care about it. So that, in order to plug in an initiative to that, we had to understand what green was in the mind of a NASCAR fan uniquely. It's an important thing because 1/3 of the US population are NASCAR fans. There are 75 million fans, 100 million unique viewers on television every year, 560 or so thousand, that's, we do 110 to 120,000 a week. Daytona 500 is 250,000, and we're 38 weeks. So, and 7 million viewers of Sprint Cup, 2 million of Xfinity, 1 million of Camping World every week, so 10 million television viewers every week for 38 weeks a year. It's a massive number of people, but with a particular lifestyle mindset. And we realized early on through testing, it was about conservation of the environment, literally framed that way, conservation, conservative view on the environment. Job creation in the United States, if things we were doing created jobs, awesome. It kind of gets to the business case of it in a lot of ways. And then a really key one, and this may have had something to do with the timing of when we launched, because this was the fall of '08, but still just rings very true, is energy independence. Anything that we did where we could make a valid claim about reducing US dependence on foreign energy is hugely important to NASCAR Nation. It really means a lot having to do with deployment of tax dollars, deployment of troops, keeping dollars at home, creating jobs for our own citizens. So that led us to stack things up. And the other thing that we realized that we would need to do in order for NASCAR Green to have viability long term was it had to fit in the business model. It couldn't be a gimmick. It couldn't be a special case, like almost like created by the government kind of thing for its own sake. It had to have rational economic sense around it. So we realized early on that we had to couple any initiative that we did with a brand. And where it's ended up is we've got roughly 26 to 30 initiatives going at any given time, which we do now. About 26 corporate partners, each attached to one. About half of those are not only new to NASCAR, they're new to sports sponsorship. And the reason it works from a business perspective is that It's a traditional business deal. It's cash sponsorship with value-in-kind contribution by the partner, which also makes it very catchy for fans, because anything that we're doing in green, tire recycling with Liberty Tire Recycling, running biofuels under the American Ethanol brand with the largest with the National Corn Growers Association and Growth Energy, recycling automotive fluids with Safety Clean Harbors, right? That we're doing green with the partner. The partner isn't just enabling it with money. We're literally in it, delivering the process together, and that's really how this all fits together.
Thanks, Mike. We're going to come back to you. Mike's kind of interesting. He was a tenured professor at Purdue in developmental psychology and got picked up by Brian France and left academia to do this. It's kind of an interesting personal journey. Jacob, tell us about the Seahawks.
Yeah, so our story isn't probably unique to anyone else's. I would say roughly around 2006, 2007, we sort of realized the Sounders, the MLS team, we're going to start playing.
That ring.
Oh, sorry. I'll turn it on. The MLS team, the Seattle Sounders, were going to start playing at our stadium. We were basically helping launch a new organization. So the writing was kind of on the wall. We're essentially doubling or even tripling the amount of events we have in our stadium. The cost of operating was doing nothing but going up. We'd always had some sort of policy and program in place since day one of the stadium, but really it was kind of fluttering in the background. We were trying to modify how we operated the building, or we were, I think our diversion rate, which, around that time was hovering in the 25% to 30% range. So a lot of our trash was going to landfill and whatnot, and the long and short of it was we were looking at the costs of operating our building, and also at the same time, our owner, Mr. Allen, is an environmentalist. He cares deeply about the issues and about where we're at today. He does care deeply about the properties or his affiliates, which our stadium is one of them, making them as efficient as possible, and also just listening to the voice of our community. Most of our fans cared, or do care, I should say, about what we were doing with this huge 2 million square foot footprint in the middle of downtown Seattle. And our fans truly do care about what we're doing, and most of them, in fact, I was joking with a few of the guys at lunch today that, they're sitting here and you'll see a guy that if you were to judge him, you'd think this guy doesn't care at all about where he's putting that Bud Light bottle he has. But he'll walk up and he'll look at the Bud Light, he'll look at the picture, look at the bins, he'll try to figure out where it goes and put it in the right spot. And that's more common than it's not. So anyways, in 2008, we really started working on, diversion was our first target. We really wanted to go after that. So we actually worked with our regional folks at Waste Management, and were able to go to the single stream recycling process, worked with our housekeeping, Aramark, our housekeeping folks there, and we had one of our staff members that really championed it as well. And as of the last probably 4 years, we've averaged around 96% diversion rate from our stadium, last year being the highest at 98%. So we saw some great things. So then in 2012, or around that same time, we were cleaning up our operations. Myself, my predecessor, who's my boss at the time, Daryl Bench, who's now with the Tampa Bay Lightning and a board member of the Green Sports Alliance. He and I and a few other groups, we kind of put our heads together and said, okay, well, let's change this building. Let's change how we run things first. Before we start looking at the big money projects and the big flashy things, let's really clean up our operations. So we did that. It took us a couple of years to retrain and teach people how to do it. We changed our operations and policies. And then from there, we were able to engage a new partner, a mechanical company called McKinstry. And with that partnership with McKinstry, we were able to, in 2011, make a huge impact on our building by upgrading all of our mechanical systems for the most part. And at the same time, we added a 2.5 acre solar field on top of our event center, which at the time was the largest one on the West Coast, to my knowledge. But then one opened in California like a month later that was bigger. So, such is life. So we had that for a month, but we had this the solar field, which is, in Washington, people are like, are you crazy? Why are you putting a solar field on your roof of your building? But it's actually been really, really efficient for us and supplies 100% of our power during our peak months for the most part in that event center space. So through all that, we saw some huge changes, and that was really the business case. Is by upgrading our aging mechanical equipment, we're able to save money in the long run. And we were able to get it down to about a 5-year return on investment with those upgrades, except for the solar field. The solar field's kind of a unique part of that project, but we were able to see some pretty good things through some creative financing and savvy when it comes to sitting with CFOs.
I remember when you put the solar on, and they were installed actually by Solyndra, and just as you were about to celebrate this incredible success, with the largest array of any sports venue, I think at the time in the country, or certainly on the West Coast, this whole political battle, opened up around Solyndra, so we had to sort of just keep it quiet about the fact that you did this spectacular thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, the best careers are unplanned, right? And Omar Mitchell is an architect, worked as an architect for many years. Then in 2007, 2008, went back to business school, went to MIT Sloan School, and got an internship with the National Hockey League and started to work with the CFO in developing some data measurement programs and analyzing some of the business aspects of the NHL Green program. And he's turned it into the most robust and important sports greening initiative in terms of global influence, I think, in the world. With all due respect to Mike, the fact that you put together that sustainability report that was, of global imports, the supply chain had enormous reaction to that. And the way you've mobilized the commissioner on behalf of this has been spectacular. So maybe you want to tell us about the work you're doing and the business case for it.
Absolutely. So thank you for those kind words. Thank you, Tom, Waste Management, for having me here. So what I'm going to talk about is NHL Green, which is the league's environmental platform. And it was developed in 2010 as a mandate by our commissioner to promote sustainable business practices across the league and its member clubs. And why do we do it? Because the root of our sport are players learning to play on frozen ponds. And we are directly impacted by climate change and freshwater scarcity. Our commissioner has said that. In the report, you'll see the link to the website, so I encourage you to look at it. Our commissioner says that it is an existential threat to our sport, and we need to respond to these two issues. So that's where NHL Green was formed. And I've had the fortune of having the league create a role, full-time role, to take on this responsibility. So to answer your question, Alan, what we do 3 things, 3 main buckets. The first bucket, and these buckets fall under the business case for why we do what we do. So the first bucket is really about green facility operations. So I'm a resource, myself and my team at the league level, we are a resource for our member clubs and their venue operators so that we can vet new technologies, products, and services that are environmentally sustainable. We vet them, we see the proof of concept, we see the case study for some of these technologies, and then we promote it. We tell folks, we tell the venue managers that, hey, there's fuel cell technology out there, there's LED lights out there that can make a difference in reducing your electricity consumption. Because insofar as we can go and say, this is all well and good and it's good to be green, if you can show and prove the financial case study as we talked about this morning, that's when you're going to get the buy-in. And so that's my role. My role is to go to each of the different facilities and to promote these types of sustainable business practices. With the underlying business case, that's cost savings, as we all know. The second major pillar and bucket that we focus on is on getting this type of information out to our fans through the use of our social media, through the use of our digital platforms. We are a $3.3 billion business. We have 400 million people that watch hockey games per season, 12 million followers on Facebook alone. That's reach that we have to promote our messaging in a meaningful and I hate to use this word, in an authentic way. And the reason why I say authentic is because you just have to put up that photo right there. I don't even have to put the word sustainability in front of it, and folks know exactly what I'm talking about. The connection between hockey and the environment. And so we can use our platforms to get this messaging out. And we can help our clubs get the messaging out by blasting it out through our social media platforms. As in the case of what Alan mentioned, we put out our sustainability report this past July, last summer. And again, we were able to use those. The sustainability report was a report that captured everything that we've been doing since our program started in 2010. Over the past 4 or 5 years, all of the work that our clubs and the league has been doing. And it captures everything from our water restoration program, where we donate monies towards the restoration of critical watered streams in the US and in Canada with the help of our nonprofit partners, Bonneville Environmental Foundation. We have a signature food recovery program where we donate prepared but unused food to local food banks. All of our clubs participate in this program.
That's a mandate.
It's a mandate by our commissioner to have that program instituted in all of our clubs. Over 100 tons of food is diverted every season. And that's significant because that's food that's going to folks in need. So all of those programs are collected in the sustainability report, and we can use our platform to get that messaging out. Sorry, the last thing is the third most important bucket is really, to Mike's point, getting the corporate partners involved. And to Jacob's point too, getting the corporate partners involved. So you're just building out the sustainability of the NHL Green platform, and then you try to align with the corporate partners who see value in that, who want to partner with a sports property that promotes and prioritizes these initiatives. And so last December, capitalizing on the release of the sustainability report and the fact that we outlined and reported voluntarily our league's carbon footprint, 550,000 metric tons. Capitalizing on the report release, we were able to sign a corporate partnership with Constellation Energy, the first of its kind in pro sports in the energy vertical for Pro Sports League. And also, as very important in this, in the partnership, they counterbalance the league's carbon footprint through the purchase of renewable energy certificates and carbon offsets. The first in any major pro sports league in the US. That's significant. That is the NHL Green Sustainability Platform being valuable, creating value, not just for the league, but for a corporate partner. In turn, they are our official energy efficiency consultants. So they're going to partner with my team to go around to the different clubs and arenas and tell them how they can, what they can do to promote sustainable business practices, whether it's through procurement of green power, whether it's through capital improvement projects to get those types of energy efficient HVAC systems and products and services like energy data, real-time data management systems. They're my official energy efficiency consultant. So it's all of those three pillars that create the business case. And that's why we do what we do. I want to end it by saying that we hope that at this, when we do it at the pro sports level, that it'll filter down to the community rinks, to the amateur level, to the junior level, to the collegiate level. Because that's where it's going to have impact. Because when you think about the business case for our sport and growing fans, the way that we grow fans is that we get sticks in hands and we get folks to learn playing ice hockey on the ice. And the barrier to entry for that ladder, the latter part, is getting the kids on the ice. Ice time is expensive. So if you can lower the energy efficiency, lower the energy costs in those ice rinks, then you get more people, you lower the ice time costs, you get more people to play our sport, which at the end of the day grows our fan base and then grows our sport. That's why we do what we do, because it's a trickle-down effect that we hope to achieve.
That's great. So Omar made reference to the total carbon profile of the NHL, about 530,000 tons annually, and that's all NHL games at all arenas, all team travel, all league operations. I work closely with Omar and his team in putting that together. Let me just give you a perspective on, a lot of people think that the carbon footprint of sports is big. Actually, 500,000 tons of carbon emissions, just compare it to a large coal power plant, and that's annually, 500,000 tons annually. A large coal power plant does 20 or 22 million tons of carbon a year. So really, the total carbon profile of the league operations is actually relatively small, but the impact of reporting that was enormous, was gigantic. And actually, these three gentlemen here, the organizations that they lead, that they represent, collectively get about 500 million views every year on their games, on their sports. 500 million views. A couple of 100 million actually individual views, and then there's the repeat offenders who keep watching it over and over and over again. But just think of the combined visibility, the combined messaging influence that just these three gentlemen organizations represent. I've been doing environmental research and education outreach for over 35 years. I've never encountered a sector that is so potent in terms of being able to reach such a diverse and numerous audience, which of course brings us to the work that Tom Carpenter and his colleagues do at Waste Management. Because when you've got that kind of visibility, as these guys do, when you're in the fishbowl of sports and you're claiming to be moving towards sustainable and more sustainable practices, a lot of people are looking to throw darts at you. There's a lot of people who throw darts at sports just for the hell of it. So you better affiliate with folks that are doing it right. You better affiliate with folks that are not going to incur any kind of branding liability as involves your partners on sustainability. Tom Carpenter, and I know Tom many years, even before he was at Waste Management, he was doing great environmental work. So, you know, having a guy like this and his team, and this is not a plug, I'm just saying what is, you know, partner with sports leagues, you know, gives them the sort of branding protection while at the same time doing it right. So maybe you want to talk about your relationship to professional sports and the business case for you.
Yeah. So I think it does start with partnerships, and it's exciting to look out in the crowd and see so many customers and partners and so on. And really the team that I'm a part of within Waste Management is called Sustainability Services, and really kind of through the years back in the 90s, it's partnering with those customers to drive those goals. And you know, sustainability in sports has just been that next avenue. We have, you know, 300 plus expert professionals kind of either on site at customer locations or driving things. And I really see, you know, there's been a lot of talk about the WMPO or sports in general, but I look at it the same way I do kind of any community, any business, and so on. And I think that's the lessons learned is I think everybody out there can look at sports and look at these, you know, best case scenarios and really look at lessons learned within that. If you look at the WMPO, when we first started, you know, taking over that sponsorship as Waste Management, that very first year was a measurement year. We didn't have the lofty goals of zero waste and other things. Yes, you know, from corporate, they wanted it to be the greenest show on grass right from the very beginning. But we wanted to start by measuring kind of our footprint within. It's really this continuing that measurement of looking at waste, but looking at our carbon footprint, looking at water usage, looking at energy usage, and looking at all of those pieces. And just like when we would work with any customer or partner, it's starting with that standpoint and understanding, and really then setting goals within that. If you look at the WMPO, it mimics what we see in society. You have, you know, a grouping of people that are there to be entertained. They're there to watch golf and have a good time. There's also a group there that you'll see kind of on Saturdays. I always tell this story that, You know, it's 10:30 in the morning, and you have a guy that's got 4 cans of beer in his hand, and he's next to another guy that's got 4 cans of beer, and quickly you realize these guys are not taking them back to their friends, they're going to be consuming them that day. And you have that kind of just enormous kind of excitement and mentality within that environment, but again, they're there to be entertained. So when we look to push forward, you know, with zero waste and these other things, it could not get in the way of what people were generally there to do. And it's the same thing with sports, it's the same thing with business. We each have a role to play. You're there to either make money, you're there to make your product, you're there to sell a service. And if sustainability gets in the way of that, it becomes kind of a hindrance. So we had to engineer around that. We had to redesign what is thought of a golf tournament. And a big piece of that is, you know, the design of taking away trash cans. When we first, you know, introduced that, and, you know, yes, I'm up here, but it's really kind of a big team effort. And really when my team kind of introduced that on the phone, I could just, you know, hear the silence that's still there today, that why don't we just take away trash cans? And it's not as simple as that, because we could do that in any environment. Take away a trash can, what's going to happen? You know, the trash then ends up in the recyclables and other things. So really it was working with all the vendors. It was working with the PGA, working with the Thunderbirds that put on the event, but there are 30 plus different vendors to ensure that everything coming into the event fit into 2 buckets. Either it's compostable or it was recyclable. And that allowed us to put those 6,000 containers out there on course, but then work with those partners to ensure that those things coming in can be properly managed. So that's engineering kind of on that front end as far as logistics and so on, but then there's also the educational aspect. So if you attend the Waste Management Phoenix Open, a big piece of it, if you listen to the radio, if you watch TV, if you're riding the trolleys in, there's messaging on your role, your part. As you come through the entrance, there's videos on your role, your part. There's recycling ambassadors that are throughout the concourse to really look at educating those folks. So when that person does come up with the beer can and they're a bit confused where to put it, they're directed at how to do that. Finally, there's really the back end piece of really kind of from an operations piece is really to drive out a lot of the cost to make it easier to do the right thing. And that's where it's been a true partnership with our operations team, our local team that really does this day in and day out and really drive those efficiencies. But we've looked at what we're doing here and it's taken it to, you know, other sporting venues and driving that same education to use this as what can be done and help people really start to mark out and achieve those goals.
That's great. I just want to give you all a heads up. We are going to take some questions at the end. I have a couple more questions to ask our colleagues before we go forward. And I just actually want to give some folks some information during the break. People were asking me questions about the sports greening, how to get involved in it. I want to give you some information. But first I want to ask Jacob, do you have to take that ring off to go through like transportation security?
You know, it's funny because this is the first time I've actually traveled with it, because usually I have it locked in a safe at home. But I was going through airport security and I saw them with my bag, and I go through and then they back it up and go through and then stop for a minute and they go through and they're like, "Sir, is this your bag?" I'm like, "Well, what did I forget in there?" Or what, you know, like what's going on? My gel, it's 4.2 ounces. I'm gonna get in trouble. So they come over and they're like, "Do you have is there a large ring in there?" So all the TSA people are over there in Seattle, you know, pulling it out, looking at it. Like, "Oh, that's so cool." So, yeah, it's pretty funny.
So they give you a TSA pre-check going back
Yeah,
because of that.
yeah.
Right?
I was like, "Let me through next time."
So just a couple things. Folks have asked during lunch, you know, how can they get involved in sports greening work? Actually, there's a number of folks associated with universities or students. Let me say this. The Green Sports Alliance has an annual summit. It's an international conference. It's actually the only conference of its kind that brings together the sports industry on behalf of sustainability. And, you know, NHL, MLB, NBA, NFL, NASCAR, you know, STA, all the leagues are there. Venue operators are there. Folks from academia are there. So the Green Sports Alliance Annual Summit this year is going to be held, and Waste Management is a supporter of that. Thank you for doing that. This year's GSA Summit will be held in Chicago June 29th through July 1st. There'll be an event at Soldier Field, tremendous program, you know, spectacular information, actually internationally. So I want to encourage you to all go to the summit. Omar's going to speak, other people are going to speak. Also, some folks were interested in actually academic programs. The Presidio Graduate School actually has a sports and sustainability certificate program where you can go and learn about, Omar's a guest fellow there, he lectures there. NASCAR participates in that, actually is a big supporter, and we do work with NASCAR tracks. But the Presidio Graduate School in San Francisco has actually, I think, the only sports and sustainability certificate program. So you might want to check that out. And then finally, the Bonneville Environmental Foundation, which works with everybody here, has a great program on restoring water restoration credits, which Omar was referring to. He has a Gallons for Goals project. For every goal scored by the National Hockey League, the NHL buys 1,000 gallons of water restoration credits. If you go to WMPO and text, actually if you text to 77177 and then type in WMPO, you will have some water restoration credits. Actually, you'll be doing a good thing. Some water restoration credits will be bought in your name, in your behalf. Okay, so that was the commercial. So now, I want to ask you about the challenges that you faced in advancing your work. Sports businesses are not in the business of environmental stewardship. And I know firsthand that moving environmental stewardship through complex organizations like your organizations is not a cakewalk. I do know that, as Omar and I like to say, and I'm now sharing that line with you, Omar, even though it was mine, an organization is the shadow of its leadership. And in every one of these cases, Brian France at NASCAR, Paul Allen at Vulcan, Gary Bettman at the NHL, David at Waste Management, David Schneider at Waste Management. In all cases, the leadership of your organizations are committed to smart and progressive environmental stewardship. It's wonderful, it's great. But tell us about the challenges that you faced, and tell us how you overcame them. Tell us, about, just about, a couple of them. If you could each keep it to about 3 minutes, because I do want to leave some time for questions. But what major challenges did you encounter? I mean, you get hired to run NASCAR Green, you get hired to do the NHL, you do environmental implementation at CenturyLink. What are the challenges you faced, and how did you overcome them?
Well, I think, with NASCAR Green as a startup, it was considered to be so counterintuitive, and oxymoron was how folks would react to it. So the two challenges that were really key up front, both of which we got through very well, and when I think about like what current challenges there are, we're in good shape. I mean, things are really evolving and rolling well. But at the beginning, the two big ones were resisting the impulse to act first and strategize later. So, sort of the ready, shoot, aim mistake that a lot of folks will make in anything new. And that just took a bunch of stakeholder management to do. The other piece was we didn't have a lot of degrees of freedom in terms of framing and communications, which I have to say was a surprise to me coming in, to get anything wrong. So we realized early on that the way we communicated and how we framed what we were doing was probably going to be 80% of the issue. And that just took a ton of work, of real market research to really understand. I'm sure, Waste Management went through a very similar process for the Think Green campaign, right? You have to know that it's going to work before you roll it out. It's like rolling out a new product, so to speak. But then, the results, though, have been absolutely phenomenal. So in retrospect, these challenges were really worth it, right? So some good news for the group. I just wanted to share this because there's been so much sort of consideration about do people care, and are citizens going to do anything here around these issues that we're talking about today? Well, NASCAR Nation is poised to help. 80% of our fans agree that climate change is happening and humans are causing it. 75% of our fans believe they have a personal responsibility themselves to address it. 2/3 and more agree that they will try anything that's reasonable, smart, priced rationally, is genuine and works. So whatever you got in the way of a product or solution, and it's for real, NASCAR Nation's there. And then today, you know, NASCAR fans versus non-fans, we do that surveying annually. They're twice as likely as non-fans to view their own household as very green and always looking for ways to positively impact the environment, up from 70% more likely last year and up from par 5-6 years ago. 1/3 of the US population doesn't see anything that was talked about today as controversial and is ready to adopt stuff that works. Solar on your home, LED lighting in your house, recycled material products, you name it. So, good news. But the hard stuff was the framing and the stakeholder management going in.
Yeah, I love working with NASCAR. I work closely with NASCAR. Last year, we've been working really closely together. We have a call every week, and you know, working on recycling design for Talladega, Alabama. You know, working in Homestead, Florida, working in Texas, working in Kansas. You know, a lot of these non-traditional allies. You know, locations. You know, not Los Angeles, San Francisco, New York, Chicago, where you expect, you know, environmental, progressive environmental views. I love what you're doing. And really, it's you know, you're reaching a demographic that, you know, is just unique,
Well, we're looking forward to seeing what those Presidio students come up with for those venues. And those are all venues that have strong recycling rates as it is, established programs, I mean Talladega, but we know your students can take it to the next level with us.
Yeah, the Presidio has an experiential learning collaboration with NASCAR where they're actually going out and sort of like Climate Corps, but for recycling at NASCAR. Jacob, you want to tell us about your big challenges and how you overcame them?
Yeah, I mean, for us, it's simple. It's money. Money's
What's
the
that?
challenge. Money. That's our biggest challenge.
Paul Allen doesn't have much money, is it?
No. Well, we're a business at the end of the day.
Right.
And Mr. Allen wants his businesses to succeed on their own. He doesn't want to have to subsidize them.
Right. But he does. I mean, he's been really generous and
He does. Well,
supportive.
with our solar field, for example,
Right.
was when we first started looking into that, that was originally something we wanted to do. We took it off the table. Return on investment was far beyond anything that we could even imagine sitting down and arguing for. And then Mr. Allen heard about the desire to add it, the fact that we've done all the engineering studies, we knew it was going to produce and all that, and he said, I want this as part of my portfolio. So he wrote a check. Now, not every owner can do that, and that's rare that he did do that, and that's not something he typically does. So money is a challenge because, as you mentioned yourself, running an NFL team isn't cheap. I mean, we have a lot of expenses. Just because we're the Seattle Seahawks and, you know, going to our back-to-back Super Bowls doesn't mean we have all this cash of money sitting there waiting for us to grab whenever we want. And so we have to be fiscally responsible with everything we do. So for me, when I'm looking at a project or doing something new, there really has to be a strong business case backing it up. And it can't just be, well, these new lights, they're LED, so it's great. And it's a step in the right direction, and it's a step forward, and they reduce energy consumption, all that. That's gonna, you know, okay, thanks for the conversation, Jake, see you later. And I'm gonna get, you know, kicked out of the room because I gotta prove why spending this money on these new lights is gonna save us money in the long run. And I gotta prove why that it's ultimately the best thing for our company to move forward. So what I do personally is I lean a lot on my vendors that I'm using to do the project, partners or suppliers and I say, look, here's the challenge, here's the questions we're gonna be asked. Let's figure out how to answer these questions efficiently or the best way. And I also look at the projects in a kind of a unique way because we're an event business. We have, obviously events and whatnot. And so I look at it from the event perspective too, of, fans being in the place, like what will really engage the fans? Like we could do cool new light shows because these are LED going on and off. We can really entice the experience of being at our venue by making these little changes. And at the same time, on the back end, we're saving energy, reducing our carbon footprint, we're doing all these great things. But it's having to look at the projects in a different angle and really have to creatively come up with an argument for them.
Omar.
So I'm going to frame the question in terms of our sustainability report that we released. Because I can tell you, that putting out a voluntary report that we weren't mandated to do, and trying to get that, get executive approval for such a document was something that took us almost 2 years to create. And so I'm sure that some folks in the audience might appreciate this story. So, because if they're thinking about doing sustainability reports, or if you're already doing it, one of the challenges obviously was first, if we've put this out there, it's going to be something that a lot of people will look at, and it will be subject to a lot of feedback, criticism potentially. We want to make sure that we deflect or minimize that as much as possible. So what we did was we partnered with our primary advisor, Natural Resources Defense Council and the Green Sports Alliance, to give us that type of validation and credibility in the marketplace that, look, what the information that we're going to report out there is legit. It's credible. That was one big thing, because once I was able to go and sell that to the commissioner and our executives, our chief legal officer and our chief financial officer, and I said, we have the backing of the NRDC on this because they are our primary advisor, that helped us with the process of going past getting, continuing and giving us credibility when we put out the report. So I encourage you, when you think about these things, to leverage the nonprofit partners and your relationships to get that credibility in the marketplace. Just a second challenge on that, on the sustainability report, was creating the carbon footprint. We've never done this before. We had, as Alan mentioned, a data metrics program that all of our clubs and their venue managers send us their consumption and utility data, including waste, water, electricity, natural gas use. And that's what we use to create the carbon footprint. What we didn't have is a way to quantify, if you think about it, what we're getting is total consumption in one arena. What percentage of that is for an NHL club? We did not know that because the systems that are in place right now are not real time. They just collect all of the consumption data, and it isn't able to accurately allocate how much is NHL related. So we had to figure out, using generally accepted accounting principles, an equity share approach to figure out exactly what that percentage was. Thinking that a multi-use arena could have an NBA and an NHL club. Some multi-use arenas can only have an NHL club. Sometimes it's like Staples Center, AEG, where they have more than 2 major league franchisees in their building. So it was trying to figure out all of these different challenges, working with experts like Michael Totten, who was our assurance provider, who was from Conservation International, has worked with the NRDC in the past to try and figure out the framework to establish how do you evaluate this carbon footprint in a meaningful and in an accurate way.
And just by point of information, so as I mentioned earlier today, I ran NRDC Sports, and I created NRDC Sports and Entertainment Greening Program. That was merged into the GSA last December, actually this January. The personnel and the resources of NRDC Sports Program are now at the Green Sports Alliance. I know we're running short on time, but do you want to talk about your major challenges and how you overcame them?
Yeah.
And then we'll take some questions.
Yeah, I think, the biggest challenges was, and if you look at the event, we've made what should seem very difficult, the teams really made it look easy. And it's really kind of taking that first step and doing the right due diligence up front, getting the data, but really kind of orchestrating all the moving parts. I've heard David Steiner talk about, kind of our operations as kind of, a ballet, if you will. And it's really kind of taking all of those pieces, building out the right business cases to drive, different programs forward. So when we first start with kind of the zero waste effort, there's a building within that. How do we execute on that? How do we educate the fans? How do we work with every one of those vendor partners? But also it's really kind of reaching beyond kind of what's typical of your thought of waste management, and really kind of driving all the other aspects, the energy, the carbon footprint, and just the water usage, and being able to kind of report on that. Our obstacle oftentimes is really, really tapping into that behavioral aspect and tapping into the way, either a sports entity or a business typically does their business. You need to really try to change that dynamic, and taking that first step, taking that leadership position and willingness to maybe invest in something up front that's going to have a return on the back end is difficult at times, because many times I think industry or sports or others, that they're worried about what type of image it'll make. They're worried about the investment. They're worried about all those different pieces within that, versus kind of taking that initial first step.
Hey, Mike, the Phoenix Open's got 100,000, it's sort of like a NASCAR race in terms of scale. Do you think that what these guys have done can be applied to a NASCAR venue event?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing about this too is, in the 6 years we've been doing this, best practices are best practices, right? I mean, if you can benefit from somebody else's learning curve, by all means.
And that's what the Green Sports Alliance provides. Mm-hmm. It's that resource so that we could find and share those best practices and share them across multiple leagues, multiple sports clubs, teams, and venues.
Right. And it is a collaboration when I have good friendships with all the panelists up here, and just, I think each of those lessons learned, it depends on how far you want to take it. When we first started with the zero waste effort, we call it a zero waste challenge.
Right.
We didn't necessarily say that zero was the ultimate goal.
Zero waste is aspirational.
That's aspirational.
Right.
Some people, it may be getting to 80%. It may be looking at your energy usage, and can you parlay some of that savings, to invest in other programs that may cost a bit more. So it's taking all of those lessons. But, we really wanted to benchmark the WMPO to be that event that we could say, okay, this is what's possible, right, but then let us help you kind of achieve whatever goals you may set in place.
So we have a conversation to have in terms of some of the tracks that we're talking about in terms of recycling, in terms of moving them to aspire to zero waste using the waste management model from here.
And we've learned a few things along the way too. Glad to share it.
Right.
I mean, that's the thing. It's I think probably when a lot of us got started in this, 6 years ago, the two green experts in the United States were basically Amory and Al Gore, right? And you, so it was three, The past 5-6 years, there's been a real proliferation of expertise. A lot of people have learned a lot, but probably, you guys probably felt the same way. Is kind of a lonely learning curve there at the beginning, right? There were no colleagues. It was figuring it out on your own. Now there's a community.
Right.
Right. I think the best thing about the group that we're part of is, just for example, I was telling Omar, first off, some guy for the Seahawks in Seattle, who I'm having dinner with, Omar from the league office in New York last night. And we were watching this video before we came up here, and I'm whispering in Omar's ear, I'm like, I'm trying to figure out how I can get these zero waste stations in my building. And we all just lean on each other for inspiration, I think. And we go to these things like in June at the summit, or stuff like this, and we get together, and all of us are hungry. We're always looking for what can we do next in our spaces.
Yeah, it's kind of unique because leagues compete, but on this, we've all come together: baseball, basketball, hockey, soccer, tennis. Everybody's sharing information about better practices. I don't talk about best practices because those are always changing, and not everybody could be the best. Everybody could do better, and no one will throw a dart at you if you say you're doing better. So, we have any questions out there? Any questions for any of these folks? Yeah, we have a question.
Just one more.
Yeah, we got one over there. Okay, we have
one. I don't need a mic.
Okay.
So we talk about all the fans and how you're reaching out with TV and all the media and social media. But I'd like to ask each one of the gentlemen up there, pick a city where your efforts have had the most impact, all the way from NASCAR through. I know Scottsdale was sort of a given. Scottsdale was already on the road to sustainability. But what city has your impact and the most impact with your sustainability?
Okay, so so the question, just for the taping and whatnot, is what city has your greening efforts had an impact on? And let's start this way.
Okay. So I guess you did mention Scottsdale. I think Gosh, from a sporting venue or, you know, just an impact, you know, waste management's all over the place. I do look at what we've done in partnering with the PGA and the Thunderbirds. And again, it's not just the zero waste aspect. It's showing kind of, you know, even more so this year in reaching out and impacting and trying to, you know, save and restore over 1,000 gallons of water, kind of, you know, that's stretching, you know, to the rivers here, but also kind of up into Colorado. If you look at what the Thunderbirds or what the WMPO's done to raise money, you know, from a social aspect, over $7 million that goes back into the community for programs. So I think that impact is probably the largest, I think, that we're involved in, and that's why we've really continued to come back and tried to, you know, reach out even through this forum that kind of impacts the community here, but then other communities. But again, I think it goes back to I guess, you know, taking those and then moving it to those other locations, because while we do have resources here to make, you know, organics a bit easier, you know, whether it be waste to energy, world-class recycling facilities, those don't always exist everywhere. So it's really kind of helping and looking in those other areas. How do you build that out, and then how do we kind of raise the bar each and every year?
Yeah, I want you to answer the question, but it's kind of an interesting question because it implies that, you know, because you're so visible, that somehow you can change the policy of a city. Because the Rangers are in New York or the Kings in LA, that you could somehow change the policy, or because you're in Talladega, that you could change the policy. I mean, it really is a tribute, you know, I mean, actually you can have some influence, but we also need to be realistic that there's, you know, only so much that a sports team can do in terms of, you know, moving waste management or energy policy or water policy.
So I'll shift the frame of the question a little bit. Certainly, to Alan's point, you know, certainly you'll see that some markets are more receptive to sustainability issues, right? So you'll see, like in Minnesota, where it is very well received. There are municipal incentives for adopting that type of green best practices and so forth. Comes to mind immediately. You'll certainly see it's in our California markets. I'm speaking at the league level. California markets have adopted sustainability. Now, to your point about, you know, who influences who, that is certainly once you have the programs out there, you know that it's hopefully filtering down to the fans. And the next step in our program is to try and figure out ways to measure that impact. On the flip side, and I'm going to be really brief, on the flip side, we're certainly seeing that the sports club or the sports team can be influenced by the city. So for instance, in our new arena that's being built in Edmonton, the city has a mandate for new construction, mixed multi-use new construction, to achieve LEED certification. And so having a high-profile building like the new Oilers Arena be LEED certified, get LEED Silver certification, is a message to the community that it's benefiting the community, and it's benefiting the fact that the club is using taxpayer dollars to build such an arena. And Alan will tell you that 5 out of the 6 last sporting arenas that were built in the past, 3 or 5 years, have all achieved LEED certification. The one that did not achieve LEED certification ended up deciding not to do it, but had EPA was doing data collection and data verification using EPA standards. So that was a conscious decision. All new buildings, all new sporting facilities have adopted this. We're seeing this with the Atlanta Falcons as an example. So you're certainly seeing that that is a conversation that's happening, and that influences other things like composting in the municipality, enhanced recycling in the municipality, even light rail and alternative transportation to these, what we would call arenas, especially if they're in urban areas. You'll see them being more adoptive and getting that type of alternative transportation to those facilities. So, give you a lot there.
Right. So, me and this machine are not getting along today. We got to cut this short, but if you want to just take, 30 seconds, each of you, I want to give you a bite at this apple also, but then we got to turn this off.
Seattle.
Seattle. That was easy.
No, in a serious note, I mean, really we are working to impact our fans, and the other beautiful thing is our next door neighbors, the Seattle Mariners. We have this healthy competition with them,
Right.
and we're great friends with them, but we were always like, oh, you're doing this, well, we're gonna try and do that. And we're always trying to green up each other.
Right.
So
Right.
I think we really are impacting our
And
city.
in all fairness to the owner of the Seahawks, I mean, what Paul Allen has done for Seattle has just been off the charts, spectacular. Mike, do you want to?
Currently, got to say Chicago. And the reason for that has basis in the mindset of the fan, the mindset of the fan of NASCAR, which is different than a team sport. Because if you ask somebody if they're a NASCAR fan, they say, I'm a NASCAR fan. Who's your favorite driver? Average number of favorite drivers that a NASCAR fan has is about 6. So there's a distributed fandom among the competitors, but a lifestyle and brand affinity at the league level, which is unique, right? So good enough for NASCAR, good enough for me, underlies psychologically all of the business relationships that are in NASCAR in terms of raising visibility for a product. So the reason Chicago has the potential to be a huge impact space for us is because, you folks in the green space, you may know that the first E15 mandate to ever happen in the United States may happen in Chicago, where every fueling station of a certain sort of set of parameters would be required to have at least one pump offer 15% ethanol as opposed to the standard of up to 10 today. That would set a precedent nationally, and Chicago's a big market, and we race there. We start our playoffs there. So that could happen imminently, and NASCAR actually, I mean, one aspect of this gig that I certainly didn't foresee was the time that I've spent in Washington and testifying before the City Council of Chicago, things like that, to send the message of good enough for NASCAR, maybe good enough for you. So that's a very direct, potential impact there.
We're going to leave it at that. Listen, let me just remind you that, most people in the world don't spend their time trying to figure out how to protect the biosphere. These guys do. And they're enormously influential at what they do. So I just want to really acknowledge you and thank you for what you do to use the platforms that you have on behalf of environmental stewardship to do it so successfully and effectively. The decisions we make today are going to affect hundreds of generations to follow us, thousands of generations that follow us, and you guys are using some of the most culturally iconic and influential organizations in the world on behalf of environmental stewardship. So right back at you, just thank you for what you're doing, and hope you guys just give these guys a nice round of applause for what they're doing. Yeah, thanks.
Tom and Kyle, Omar, great stuff.